Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
What do you know about the founding fathers of America? In school, we learn a clean and simple story. It is a story about serious men in powdered wigs. We see pictures of them signing documents with feather pens. For many people, this history is important, but it is also a little boring. The real story is much more interesting. These famous men were not perfect. They were real people with complicated lives. They had strange hobbies, difficult problems, and deep secrets. Take George Washington. He was a brave general and the first president. But he was also a passionate dog lover. He bred his own dogs and gave them funny names like Sweet Lips. Then there is Thomas Jefferson. He wrote the beautiful words in the Declaration of Independence. He wrote that all men are created equal. But this same man owned more than 600 enslaved people during his lifetime. He did not give them freedom. And what about Benjamin Franklin? We all know the famous story about him flying a kite in a thunderstorm. The story says he discovered electricity. But this story is a myth. It is not true. This story will look past the simple school version. We will uncover the messy, brilliant, and very human secrets of these men. We will get to know the real people behind the myths. 2. A man and a general. When you think of George Washington, you might picture a man with white hair. But that was not a wig. It was his real hair. He was a redhead. He just put white powder on his hair to look older and more serious. There is also a famous story about Washington and a cherry tree. The story says he cut down a tree and told his father the truth because he could not tell a lie. But this story is not real. A writer invented it after Washington died to make him seem like a perfect hero. The real George Washington had a difficult childhood. His father died when he was only 11 years old. This was a big problem for the family. He became the man of the house and had to help his mother and younger siblings. The family planned for George to go to a good school in England. After his father died, he could not go. He had to stay in Virginia and learn to be a farmer. He did not get a good education, and he felt insecure about this for his whole life. Luckily, George had a mentor. His older half-brother, Lawrence, helped him. Lawrence was 14 years older than George. He was everything George wanted to be. He was educated in England and was a respected soldier in the British Army. He also owned a large and beautiful estate called Mount Vernon. Lawrence was like a teacher to his younger brother and taught him many important skills. When George was 19 years old, Lawrence became very sick with tuberculosis. His doctors said he should go to the sunny island of Barbados to get better. George went with his brother. It was his first and only time away from America. He saw a new culture and learned new things. But the trip was also dangerous. George got a serious disease called smallpox. He was very sick, but he was a fighter and he survived. He had scars on his face for the rest of his life from the illness. Sadly, Lawrence did not survive his sickness. He died a year after the trip. George was very sad to lose his brother and mentor. Because Lawrence died, Lawrence inherited Mount Vernon. At a young age, he became the owner of the large and famous estate. 3. A big mistake. George Washington was not happy to only be a wealthy farmer. He wanted more from his life. He wanted to be a soldier, just like his older brother, Lawrence. So, in 1752, when he was 20 years old, Washington joined the British Army. Remember, America was not its own country yet. It was a colony of Britain. At that time, there was tension between the British and the French in America. Both groups wanted the rich land in the Ohio Valley. A rumor started that the French were building forts near the Ohio River. The British Army needed someone to go and check. They sent young George Washington. He arrived and saw that the rumors were true. He also saw that he was seriously outnumbered. There were many more French soldiers than he had in his group. A good soldier might retreat or try to talk. But Washington was young and did not have much experience. He panicked. Instead of thinking, he acted. He gave the order to attack. His men started shooting in the woods. The fight was quick and chaotic. When it was over, 10 French soldiers were dead. One of them was a diplomat. Killing a diplomat was a terrible mistake. It was against the rules of war. The French government was furious. They called Washington an assassin. The British were also angry. They told him he had only one job, and he failed. This single panicked event became a big reason for the start of the French and Indian War. This war was a long and difficult conflict that lasted for 7 years. It is strange but true. The great General George Washington accidentally started a war. Despite this huge mistake, he did not give up. He learned from it and became a much better leader. In the future, he would be known as a brave and brilliant general on the battlefield. 4. A secret life. George Washington, the famous general and first president, had a very private and secret life. Away from his public duties, he was a man with deep feelings, surprising hobbies, and complex secrets. Before his marriage, Washington was deeply in love with a woman named Sarah Fairfax. This was a difficult love because she was already married to his best friend. He wrote a passionate letter to her right before he became engaged to Martha Dandridge Custis. Martha was a kind and very wealthy widow who had 2 young children, John and Patsy. Washington married Martha and became their stepfather. They never had biological children of their own, possibly because of an illness Washington had when he was young. By all accounts, he was a devoted and loving father to Martha's children. Washington also loved to have fun. He was an excellent and energetic dancer. When he went to parties, he was known to stay on the dance floor until 4 o'clock in the morning. He was also a passionate dog lover. At his Mount Vernon home, he kept around 30 dogs at one time. He even bred his own unique type of hound and gave them all special names, such as Drunkard and his favorite, Sweet Lips. But a more mysterious part of Washington's life was his membership in a secret group. At age 20, he joined the Freemasons. This was more than just a social club. The Freemasons were a secret brotherhood with special rituals and passwords. Their secrets were a way to prove a man could be trusted. They believed in radical new ideas like democracy and freedom of speech. In their private meetings, they practiced electing leaders and discussing equality. Washington was a proud member for his whole life and became a master mason. His death was both sad and strange. In December 1799, he fell ill with a sore throat. His doctors used a common but dangerous medical treatment of the time, bleeding. They removed almost 40% of his body's blood, and he died soon after. His death revealed a great conflict in his beliefs. In his will, he ordered that his enslaved workers be freed, but only after his wife Martha died. Martha did not free most of them. After she died, the enslaved families were cruelly broken apart and given to her grandchildren. There is one last horrifying secret. Washington's famous false teeth were not made of wood. They were a grim mixture of metal, ivory from hippos, and teeth from animals like cows and horses. Most terribly, they also included human teeth that were pulled from the mouths of the enslaved people he owned. 5. A man of two minds. Thomas Jefferson was a very smart and sensitive man. He was the main writer of the Declaration of Independence. He was also a man who liked new things. He brought new foods like ice cream and macaroni and cheese to America. But Jefferson's life was complicated. He often felt like he was two different people. Jefferson was born in Virginia. His mother's family was rich and important. His father was a farmer who worked on the land. Because of this, Jefferson always felt pulled between two different worlds. His father died when he was only 14 years old. This was very difficult for him. He studied hard and went to college when he was just 16. He became a lawyer and built his famous home, Monticello. Jefferson was a man of two minds, especially about slavery. In his writing, he said that slavery was a terrible thing. He wrote that all people should be free. But at the same time, he was a slave owner himself. Over his life, he owned more than 600 enslaved people. They worked on his farm and in his house. This is the biggest question about Thomas Jefferson. How could he write about freedom but keep people as his property? His private life was also very complicated. His wife, Martha, died young. Before she died, she asked him to never marry again. He promised her he would not. But he had a long relationship with an enslaved woman named Sally Hemings. Sally lived and worked at Monticello. She was also his wife's half-sister. A relationship between them was not equal. Sally was his property, so she did not have the power to say no to him. Jefferson and Sally Hemings had children together. When they were in France, Sally became pregnant. She told Jefferson she would only return to America if he promised to free their children when they became adults. He agreed. When their 4 children grew up, Jefferson freed them, just like he promised. He was a man who believed in liberty, but he did not give it to most of the people he enslaved, or to the woman who was the mother of his children. 6. A famous and clever man. Benjamin Franklin was different from the other founding fathers. He was older, but he had a lot of energy and was very charming. In his time, he was like a rock star. He was a writer, a scientist, and an inventor. He was a very clever and famous man, known in America and in Europe. Franklin was born in Boston in the year 1706. He came from a very large family. He was one of 17 children. His family was poor, and his father made soap and candles. Because they did not have much money, Franklin left school when he was young. At the age of 12, he started to work for his older brother's newspaper. Franklin loved to write, but his brother did not want to print his work. So, when he was 16, he had a secret plan. He started to write letters and put them under the office door at night. He did not use his own name. He pretended to be a funny, middle-aged woman named Silence Dogood. The letters were very clever and made fun of life in Boston. People loved them and even sent marriage proposals to the newspaper for Mrs. Dogood. When his brother learned the secret, he was not happy. Soon after, Franklin left Boston and moved to Philadelphia. There, his life changed. He became a very rich and successful man. He started his own printing business and had the most popular newspaper in the colonies. He also wrote a famous book called Poor Richard's Almanac every year. He had a common-law wife, Deborah Reed. He also had a son named William, but the mother of his son remains a mystery. Franklin was also a world-famous scientist. Many people know a story about Franklin and a kite. The story says he discovered electricity in a storm. That part is not true. Flying a kite in a lightning storm is very dangerous. Franklin did do important experiments with electricity. His smart work helped prove that lightning was a form of electricity. This made him even more famous. He spent many years in Europe as a diplomat for America. He was especially popular in France, where he used his charm to make friends for the new country. He helped get money and soldiers for the American Revolution. He was never president, but he was one of the most important people in the country's history. He is the face on the $100 bill. 7. Secret groups. The Founding Fathers had a secret world away from their public lives. Many of them were members of special, secret groups. George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, for example, were both Freemasons. The Freemasons was a secret club or brotherhood for men. To prove they could be trusted, members learned secret handshakes and passwords. It was a place where men could talk about new ideas like freedom and democracy. A very important idea for the Masons was that men from different religions could meet and work together for the good of everyone. In the 18th century, this was a radical idea. The group created a network of trust. If a Mason traveled to a new city, he could find other Masons to help him. They were like brothers. This network of powerful men was very useful. Benjamin Franklin was a very important Mason. He used this powerful network to help America during the Revolution. He went to France and used his Masonic connections to get help. Because of him, France sent money, ships, and soldiers to America. This support was very important and helped America win the war against Britain. Franklin also visited other secret places. When he lived in London, he was a guest at the Hellfire Club. This was a very private club for rich and powerful men who had wild parties. But Franklin had an even bigger secret. In 1998, workers found something shocking in the basement of his old London house. They found over 1,200 human bones. The bones belonged to men, women, and even children. The house was used as a secret anatomy school. A friend of Franklin used the basement to study dead bodies, which was illegal at that time. Franklin knew about the secret school. It was very risky. If people discovered the bones, his important work for America could be ruined. Many people believe the founding of America was a Masonic project. 9 men who signed the Declaration of Independence were Masons. The design of Washington, D.C. seems to have Masonic symbols. The streets form patterns like a square, a compass, and a star. The eye on the back of the $1 bill is also a famous Masonic symbol. It represents a great architect watching over the new nation. These signs suggest a hidden plan behind the creation of the United States. 8. The real story. The men who created the United States are often shown as perfect heroes. We see pictures of them as serious, important men. But the true story is different. They were not gods. They were real, complicated men with big secrets and problems. George Washington was a brave general and a great leader. But he was also the man who started a war by accident when he was young. He was not always the perfect soldier we imagine. Thomas Jefferson wrote the famous words about freedom and equality for everyone. He believed in these ideas. At the same time, he owned more than 600 enslaved people. He even enslaved his own children. This is a difficult and sad part of his story. Benjamin Franklin was a world-famous genius. He was a writer, a scientist, and a diplomat. But he also had a very dark secret. Hundreds of human bones were found in the basement of his London home. These men were full of contradictions. They said one thing, but sometimes did another. In many ways, the country they created is like them. The United States is a country built on the idea of freedom, but it also has a history of difficult problems. It is important to understand the flaws of these leaders. When we see their mistakes and their complicated lives, we can understand the history of America in a better way. They were not perfect, but their real stories show they were not boring. They were brilliant, messy, and human. Which fact about these men was the most surprising for you to learn?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.